Welcome to Coruscant. After Kel Shabol, it's a bit of a culture shock being here. The center of the galaxy, with the grandeur to match. But everyone knows Coruscant's grandeur's only skin deep. It's a gilded world, like so many of the galaxy's city planets. The upper levels are well kept and home to the planet's wealthy, while the levels below are little more than slums. The deeper you go, the worse it gets. Considering that you've come all the way down to 1313 to meet me, I'm sure you know that already. But the slums are just the start of the dangers down here. There are even deeper reaches of Coruscant that are abandoned, uninhabitable to all but the most hardy of mutants, and even the comparatively tame slum levels have dark secrets.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
Everyone loves to rag on Coruscant, myself included, but the city itself is a real marvel when you get down to it. They say that Galactic City is nearly 100,000 years old, though most of it was built relatively recently, during the Age of the Republic. It's completely consumed the planet in a way that no other planet city has. Hell, even the name Coruscant comes from how the city looks from orbit. I've no clue what the planet's original name was, and not even archaeologists know much about what Coruscant was like before the city. Everything this planet used to be disappeared long ago. Nowadays, pretty much everything about Coruscant is artificial. Originally, it was a rather chilly place, but nowadays, it's got orbital mirrors to make it warmer. Coruscant's atmosphere is constantly filtered and stabilized by atmospheric scrubbers, without which the planet would be uninhabitable due to pollution and all the sentience sucking up oxygen. Coruscant's got a few small seas, but they're artificial too. The only parts of the planet you can really consider natural are the handful of mountain peaks accessible from Galactic City and the planet's polar ice caps, which are dotted with irrigation stations that melt fresh water from the ice and pipe it all over Coruscant. The infrastructure required to keep Galactic City running is mind-bogglingly complex. I mean, there are at least 3 trillion people here, and all of them need to be fed, watered, and provided with breathable air. It doesn't help that there's a boatload of exotic non-humans with unique requirements living here. Some breathe methane, some breathe ammonia, some breathe cyanogen gas. And some apartment buildings have to find ways to house all of them at once, next door to your average oxygen-nitrogen breather. And the basics are just the start. Most sentients are going to want electricity, holonet access, waste disposal, the works. The infrastructure needed to support all runs through the Galactic City, and the lower you go, the more of it there is. I've heard that the ancient Coruscanti needed the help of the Gree to make it all work, and I'd believe it. But once you're done gawking at the engineering masterpiece Coruscant is, the thing that stands out the most is the social stratification. The wealthy live in gleaming skyscrapers on the surface, on the uppermost of Coruscant's 5,000-something levels. The poor live down here, where the sun never shines and danger is always just around the corner. Many generations of Coruscanti have lived and died in the Underworld without ever seeing the sun. It's depressing, but it's true. All the light down here is artificial. Across most of the Underworld, it's dim and unchanging, a permanent twilight that looks the same in the middle of the night as it does in the middle of the day. There's natural weather down here though, believe it or not. Moisture and air that get trapped down here create a microclimate that's exclusive to the Underworld, shaped by the layout of the city blocks and traffic canyons. As a result, the Underworld has 3 distinct climate layers, and it gets its own unique wind patterns and rainstorms. The Coruscant Underworld's got plenty of non-sentient fauna too. All of Coruscant's original indigenous species went extinct long ago, except for the Thransil, the hawkbat, and, depending on who you ask, possibly humans as well. The rest have been replaced by a diverse array of vermin from across the galaxy, many of which have adapted all too well to living in Galactic City. You've got conduit worms, shadow barnacles, hive rats, granite slugs, duracrete slugs, and many, many more unpleasant creatures to reckon with down here. The conduit worms are the worst. They feed on electricity and live in the conduits that run through Galactic City, but when there's a blackout and they can't feed in the ordinary way, they send out feelers towards the nearest electrical source. More often than not, the nearest electrical source is a brain, and every time there's a blackout, a bunch of Underworld dwellers turn up dead with conduit worm feelers going through their ears. The highest levels of the Underworld are the mid-2000s, and they stretch down almost to level 1000, past which Coruscant gets completely uninhabitable. The Underworld levels aren't accessible on every part of Coruscant. The skyscrapers of the wealthy need solid foundations after all, and as a result, the lower levels are filled in some places, or packed with huge machines that make the surrounding areas unlivable. While the upper levels are a shell over the planet, the actual inhabited and accessible parts of the lower levels are more of a spiderweb, an unnavigable labyrinth of streets and alleys winding their way across the planet. Coruscant Underworld is divided into a slew of districts, most of them unremarkable and lawless. There's law enforcement down here, but they're only a formality across most of the Underworld, which is instead ruled by gangs or vigilantes. That makes the Underworld a favorite haunt of out-of-work mercenaries, career criminals, and other people who like to kill for fun, so watch yourself while you're down here. But as on any planet, the bulk of the criminals down here aren't in it for pleasure. Poverty makes people desperate, and in a place like this, can you really blame people for resorting to extraordinary measures just to get by? Now, all of that's not to say that the entire Coruscant Underworld is an irredeemable hellhole where everyone's out to kill you. Most of the people here are normal folks just trying to scrape by. And there's valid reasons to visit the Underworld too, apart from meeting some old smuggler in a seedy cantina. If you've got business with the Hutts or Black Sun, this is one of the best places to arrange it. And if it's entertainment you seek, it's no secret that the Underworld is much more lively than Coruscant's surface. There's all sorts of fun down here, if you know where to look. All the best cantinas in Coruscant are in the Underworld, that's for sure, with the notable exception of Dex's Diner. The really dangerous parts of Coruscant aren't actually the slums. They're the levels that are even deeper. The most distant reaches of the Coruscant Underworld are completely abandoned and have been for thousands of years. There are old munitions factories down here that haven't seen use since the time of the Pius Dea, and below that is where things get really sketchy. The bottom 50 levels of Coruscant are straight up inaccessible, and the bottom 1000 are pretty much uninhabitable. Between level 50 and level 1000, there are hundreds of levels of Old City that are packed completely with trash from the city above. These levels are invariably contaminated with toxins, and below level 1000, the air steadily becomes unbreathable as the lowermost levels are beyond the reach of the planet's atmospheric scrubbers. The bottom of Coruscant is a literal cesspit, a toxic abyss that in the very distant past was once the apex of the greatest city in the galaxy. But above the deepest depths of the cesspit and below the bottom of the Underworld, there's a few levels of Undercity that ride the line between inhabitable and uninhabitable. These levels are the domain of mutants, the most wretched of the wretched, the forsaken descendants of Coruscant's worst off. Millennia in the toxic underbelly of Galactic City have mutated these beings into abominations that feast on any who wander into their domain. Their levels have been sealed off by the Coruscanti authorities, but there are still ways down here and there, as well as ways up for mutants eager for a meal. Coruscant's mutants tend to be similar to the kinds of creatures that dwell in caves on other planets. The most normal of these mutants are the corridor ghouls, pale, eyeless dogs that hunt via echolocation. The corridor ghouls, as well as a bunch of unnamed species with which they share their home, are non-sentient, but other mutant species aren't. The Coruscanti ogres are semi-sentient and vaguely humanoid, and whether or not they count as a singular species is a matter of debate. No two Coruscanti ogres are alike, These things live in the most vile and irradiated parts of the city, in sewers and old reactor stations, and they've been mutated beyond recognition. Some are capable of speech, but the extent to which they're genuinely intelligent is debated. Perhaps the most chilling of the Coruscantine mutants, though, are the Chthons. These beings are all too recognizable. Their ancestors were clearly human. But the Chthons have degenerated over the millennia, and nowadays they look like walking corpses. Their skin is pale and ragged, and though they have eyes, they're buried under a layer of skin. If you get close enough to a Chthon, you can see their eyes darting back and forth underneath this skin. But what's really uncanny about them is that they're still sentient. Barely so, but sentient nonetheless. They have a civilization of sorts down there, and they're still intelligent enough to build traps for trespassers. Or at least, that's what I've heard. Anyone who has a run-in with the Chthons is unlikely to escape. They're the second most dangerous monsters on Coruscant, after the ones that live in the skyscrapers on the surface, that is. Well, that's enough doom and gloom for one night, don't you think? At least I think it's still night. You never can tell down here. And if you're hungry for more though, meet me back here tomorrow. I've got some more unknown region stories you might be interested in.